Let me ask you a question almost nobody wants to ask out loud. What if you do all of this work? You create the product, you show up consistently, you do all the things, and you put your heart into it all, and nothing happens. No sales, no traction, no confirmation. That fear right there is the real reason why so many people don't even get started, or they start and then they stop, or they keep pivoting to the next idea. It's not about laziness. It's not about a lack of faith. It's the fear of doing all the work for nothing. And so today I want to talk about this, and I want to show you how to build in a way that actually quiets this fear instead of feeding it. If you're building an online business, especially as a Christian coach or entrepreneur, digital product creator, you've probably had this thought at some point. I don't mind working hard. I just don't want to waste my time. And that makes perfect sense. Your time matters, your energy matters, your capacity matters. You are balancing families. Some of you have full-time jobs or health issues, other ministries, and life responsibilities. So when someone says, just create and trust God, but there's no structure or clarity attached to that, your nervous system is like, okay, but what if this doesn't work? Oh, halt. That's not rebellion, and that's not a lack of faith. That's just your brain trying to protect you and keep you safe. When I first started rebuilding my business from scratch a couple years ago, I wasn't stepping into certainty. I was stepping into alignment. It's very, very important. I didn't know how things were going to turn out. I didn't know if they would work. I didn't have any guarantees. What I did have was clarity on one thing. I had clarity for the next step. So instead of building something really big or complicated, I led with a very small, low-cost offer, not because I was thinking small, but because I wanted confirmation. I wanted to see if this was something that people actually wanted to buy. I wanted that feedback before I built anything else. I wanted to move forward without putting unnecessary pressure on myself. And that one decision changed everything for me because it gave me information, confidence, and eventually a lot of momentum. And that's what so many people are missing. And I get it. This fear does not come from nowhere. For many people, these fears come from past disappointments. You tried something before, you showed up, you invested time and money, and the return didn't match the effort. For others, it comes from just watching people around. You pour their hearts into something and it doesn't really take off. And so you think, well, what if that happens for me? And for others, it comes from being given spiritual advice without structure. Like, just leap, just trust, just post, right? Just believe. But there's no real plan. There's no path. There's no confirmation points. So your brain is trying to protect you by saying, let's not do that again. Let's not go there, and shuts it all down. This doesn't mean that you don't trust God. It just means that you don't want to be in that position again, right? But here's where we need to reframe something really important. Faith is not about wishing and hoping that something works. Biblical faith is about taking obedient action. And so in scripture, we see like farmers planting in the right seasons, and builders counting the costs, and stewards multiplying what they've been given. God is not asking us to gamble with our time or our energy. He's asking you and I to build with intention. So let's talk about why so many people do the work and then they see no real return. Most people don't do all the work for nothing because God didn't show up or because God's not working through them. They do the work for nothing because they built something too big or too vague or too broad. They tried to help everyone instead of just someone specific. They created without clarity. They skipped the validation process and went straight to scaling. They put in effort without feedback. And that's not a faith problem. That's a structure problem. And income doesn't come from effort alone. Income comes from alignment, clarity, and getting that feedback, which is why the fear quiets when confirmation shows up early. So important. And this is where everything shifts. You don't remove fear by waiting longer. You remove fear by designing a path where confirmation appears before exhaustion, like before you hit a brick wall, right? That means starting smaller than you think. It means being more specific than you prefer and letting response guide what you build. This is why low-cost focused offers work so well from the beginning. They reduce risk. They create that feedback loop. They confirm demand. They build confidence. Confirmation doesn't come after perfection. It comes after obedience with structure. Now let's talk about trusting God with the outcome, because this is also where people get really confused. Trusting God does not mean ignoring strategy. It does not mean refusing to learn. Trusting God means doing what He's already shown you, clearly taking the step that's in front of you, not worrying about the outcome. And instead of asking, what if I do all of this work for nothing? There's a better question to ask. What is the next step God is wanting me to take right now? That question removes the pressure, it restores your momentum, and it builds trust, not just with God, but with yourself. You don't need a guarantee. You need a path that confirms you're moving in the right direction. And when you build with clarity, intention, and faith-led structure, the fear doesn't disappear overnight, but it does quiet. Confidence grows, momentum builds, and income becomes a byproduct, not a burden. So after I launched a small offer and I started to receive my first couple of sales, I knew I was on a path of confirmation. I didn't suddenly have everything figured out. I didn't have a 5-year plan, but I had evidence that I was moving in the right direction. So I kept going and I kept asking God for wisdom. And with each next step, the confirmation would lead to confidence, and then, not confidence in myself, but confidence that I could hear, respond, adjust, and steward what God was placing in my hands. And from there, clarity increased and decisions became easier. Fear lost its grip, and I wasn't building blindly anymore. I was building with feedback, with peace, with more direction. So if this spoke to you, don't rush past it. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is the next small step God is inviting me to take right now? Not the whole plan, just the next step. And let me know in the comments, what is that next step for you? What do you feel like your next step is right now after listening to this? All right, I'll see you in the next video.